Heavy rain returns to many parts of China. Multiple regions issue blue rainstorm alerts. Sudden downpour in Beijing. Analysis: Evergrande, a Ponzi scheme masterminded by the Chinese Communist Party. Public outrage mounts as state-owned banks impose withdrawal limits. Maritime authority issues hefty fines. Who will settle the blood debt accumulated over 24 years of persecution? It's all covered in today's China Truths. Heavy rain returns to many parts of China. Multiple regions issue blue rainstorm alerts. Sudden downpour in Beijing. The flood memories in North and Northeast China are still fresh, and Beijing is once again experiencing heavy rain. According to an official announcement from Beijing Traffic Radio on August 20th, heavy rain has fallen in areas such as Dongcheng, Xicheng, Chaoyang, and Fengtai in Beijing during the afternoon. On August 21st, Beijing issued a citywide blue rainstorm warning and a yellow lightning warning. In mountainous and hilly areas, secondary disasters such as mudslides and collapses induced by heavy rainfall may occur, and low-lying areas may experience water accumulation. Due to the heavy rain, a road collapse occurred on the Beijing-Kunming Expressway, G108, in Fangshan District, affecting an area of about 25 square meters. A total of 120 bus routes were affected, with 83 routes suspended, 22 routes adopting section measures, and 13 routes taking detours. Furthermore, the China Meteorological Administration specifically pointed out that from today until the 22nd, there will be another period of heavy rainfall in Beijing, Tianjin, Hebei, and the three northeastern provinces, with some areas in the northeast experiencing heavy rain. At around 12 o'clock noon on the 20th, Shanghai issued a blue rainstorm warning and a yellow lightning warning. Additionally, provinces such as Shaanxi and other regions and cities have successively issued warnings for heavy rain and flash floods. Prior to August 19th, Dalian City in Liaoning experienced a sudden heavy rain, causing streets to turn into rushing streams. Many food delivery riders' electric bikes were washed away, and numerous cars were submerged. There were even instances where riders, along with their bikes, were knocked over by the flood. The heavy rain led to several sewer backups in Dalian, with water spouts reaching over 1 meter high. At noon on the same day, the local meteorological department issued a red rainstorm warning. The horrifying memories of the late July flooding are still vivid in the minds of the disaster-affected residents. However, the evidence of unannounced flood releases by the authorities, which we have consistently reported in previous news updates, has only exacerbated the extent of the damage to the flood-affected residents. Among these areas, Zhuozhou town in Hebei province was hit the hardest, with water levels reaching almost catastrophic heights of up to 12 meters. According to reports from state media, dozens of people have lost their lives, and hundreds of thousands are stranded. Aerial photos from AFP show that much of Zhuozhou has been submerged by floodwaters, turning its commercial streets into murky rivers. Nearby farmland has also been submerged in large areas. The floods have washed away bridges and disrupted transportation. As we reported earlier, a factory owner in Zhuozhou posted a letter on social media, likening the local situation to China being rolled back to the 1970s and 1980s after the catastrophic floods, and estimated that it would take at least 3 years to recover. As news emerges from the northeastern region, encompassing provinces deeply impacted by the recent floods like Beijing, Tianjin, and Hebei, and with more heavy rain anticipated in the days ahead, it's genuinely hard for us to fathom the hardships faced by these unfortunate residents. Analysis: Evergrande, a Ponzi scheme masterminded by the Chinese Communist Party. On August 17th, Chinese real estate giant Evergrande Group filed for bankruptcy protection in New York. On the same day, Evergrande subsidiaries Tianji Holding Limited and Scenery Journey Limited also filed for bankruptcy protection. Why did Evergrande choose to announce bankruptcy protection in the United States, instead of bankruptcy? What's the difference between them? Some opinions suggest that Evergrande's collapse, leading to this point, resembles a Ponzi scheme, with the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, being the mastermind behind this massive scheme. Publicly available information reveals that under common law, troubled companies have two options: bankruptcy liquidation or bankruptcy protection. According to the U.S. Bankruptcy Code, when a company declares bankruptcy, all of its operations must immediately cease, and a bankruptcy trustee is appointed to auction off the company's assets. The proceeds from these auctions are used to repay the company's debts, leading to a bankruptcy liquidation process. On the other hand, when a company applies for bankruptcy protection, it can continue to operate, swiftly restructure, and revive itself, avoiding the dissolution typically associated with bankruptcy. Voice of America reports that Evergrande not only borrowed extensively within China but also issued bonds overseas to raise funds. In 2021, it began to default on its dollar-denominated bonds, and by the end of last year, its total liabilities had reached approximately 2.44 trillion yuan, approximately $333.92 billion, roughly 2% of China's GDP. So, can Evergrande revive itself after applying for bankruptcy protection? Senior media personality Mr. Tang Jingyuan believes that it's nearly impossible for Evergrande to gain a chance at revival through this bankruptcy protection application. He explains, Evergrande's debt scale is extremely massive, reaching nearly $334 billion. The dollar-denominated debt overseas, which is relatively small for Evergrande, is around $20 billion. Considering this scale, even if Evergrande successfully obtains bankruptcy protection, securing a portion of its assets temporarily, it's just a tiny fraction compared to its enormous debt. It's not nearly enough to make a significant impact on Evergrande as a whole. Some netizens questioned how Evergrande, founded in 1997 and operating for less than 25 years, could accumulate a debt of 2 trillion yuan. Calculated this way, it means an average daily debt of 219 million yuan, approximately $30.3 million. What kind of background could enable a company to continue for so many years with a daily debt of 219 million? Is it because of the 35 party committees, 1023 party branches, and 10,841 party members inside? Su Jiayin, Evergrande's chairman of the board, once said that Evergrande is willing to entrust everything to the party. So, is the true owner behind him the Chinese Communist government? Evergrande's main business is in China, and currently, 40% of companies that account for China's housing sales have defaulted. Major developers have taken money from home buyers but have not built houses. This has not only sparked protests from homebuyers but has also emptied financial institutions like banks that lent them money because these developers cannot repay their debts. Where did the money go? As previously reported, some netizens have leaked a set of data. Another Chinese real estate giant, Vanke Group, had a total income of 3.491 trillion yuan from home sales from 2011 to 2022. They paid their employees wages, accounting for 3.44%, paid interest to banks, accounting for 5.1%, paid for land purchases from the state, accounting for nearly 35%, and paid various national taxes and fees, accounting for 13.36%. Jiang Guangyu, host of The Most Mocking Point in the News, believes that China's real estate industry is essentially a massive Ponzi scheme. One deceives the next, and it keeps going. The CCP deceives real estate developers deceive banks, banks deceive ordinary people into buying real estate and stocks, and developers deceive ordinary people into buying houses. In short, big fish eat small fish eat shrimp, and it's a layer-by-layer deception. Some netizens commented, Su Jiayin, the founder, may be the biggest scammer in human history, and Evergrande just used real estate as a prop in this Ponzi scheme. Tang Jingyuan said, Evergrande's problem is not a technical issue. It's a structural issue with how the entire company operates, a model of high turnover and high debt. It is linked to the macroeconomics of China's pillar industry, real estate. In other words, it's caused by the economic policies pushed by the CCP, so it's a structural and policy issue. In plain terms, there are very strong political factors behind it, and it can only be resolved under political circumstances. A Ponzi scheme is an investment fraud that pays existing investors with funds collected from new investors. Ponzi scheme organizers often promise to invest your money and generate high returns with little or no risk. Ponzi schemes typically collapse when there are not enough new investors to pay returns to earlier investors, resulting in significant financial losses for those involved. The scheme is named after Charles Ponzi, who became infamous for using this fraudulent method in the early 20th century. Public outrage mounts as state-owned banks impose withdrawal limits, maritime authority issues hefty fines. Amidst the ongoing turmoil in China's real estate sector, the financial resources of the CCP government are steadily diminishing. Recently, various local authorities have resorted to imposing fines as a means of generating revenue. Additionally, several major state-owned banks have publicly announced restrictions on withdrawal limits for depositors. According to some various Chinese media outlets, these banks include China Construction Bank Inner Mongolia Branch, Qingdao Bank, Bank of China Tianjin Branch, Nanjing Bank, Jiangsu Rural Commercial Bank, Liangshan Rural Commercial Bank, among others. It's worth noting that the adjusted limits vary from bank to bank. For instance, Fujian Haixia Bank has set non-counter transfer limits at a daily cumulative maximum of 5,000 yuan, approximately $692, and a monthly cumulative maximum of 100,000 yuan, approximately $13,839. Qingdao Bank has stated that daily limits for specific personal accounts will be adjusted to fall below 5,000 yuan. Several banks have stated that these measures are aimed at combating activities related to telecommunications network fraud and safeguarding against financial losses resulting from fraudulent activities, all in an effort to protect the customers' pockets. This has sparked a wave of outrage among mainland citizens. Social media comments are filled with criticisms such as, "The biggest fraudsters are the banks. Why do I feel like this isn't so much about preventing fraud, but more like they're tying us into it? When I see the word expert, I feel like swearing." Apart from banks, official institutions of the CCP across various regions are resorting to large-scale fines to boost their income. Merchant sailors engaged in international maritime transport revealed to the media in May of this year that they have recently faced the most stringent enforcement by the Shanghai Maritime Safety Administration. Numerous ships have been fined, and some even seized. For instance, a bulk cargo vessel was fined 50,000 yuan, approximately $6,918, simply because an Indonesian crew member on board hoisted a Chinese flag upside down. This so-called enforcement aimed at issuing fines is breeding more severe corruption. Another netizen reveals that the Maritime Safety Administration allows local units to raise funds. In one province, the Maritime Administration demanded 2 million yuan, approximately $276,484, from each port, threatening to conduct daily inspections of the ships in the harbor otherwise. Domestic trade ports couldn't afford this, so they were subjected to constant harassment. The individual also pointed out that we should still be thankful the Public Security Bureau doesn't have the task of raising funds, or else, how many people would face beatings during interrogations? Nowadays, many people have already noticed that with the economic downturn, the Chinese communist regime is on collapse ground. In an article on the 18th, the Wall Street Journal stated that if the Chinese government cannot demonstrate to its citizens that it still has the capability to take strong, concrete actions to safeguard their interests, China might face a painful period of economic stagnation, which could ultimately lead to political turmoil. A netizen's comment said, "I didn't expect that even mainstream media like the Wall Street Journal would say such things about continued economic stagnation in China leading to turmoil. The fate of the party state is sealed." Veteran media personality Yan Chun posted on Facebook on the 19th, stating, "The stability of a regime depends on the comparison of two variables, the government and the people. When the national strength is robust, resistance from the public is expected to be weaker because the government has the resources to address public discontent through financial means. Conversely, when the national strength is diminished, struggling in various areas and lacking in capability, the public's demands remain unfulfilled, and grievances escalate, leading to the potential for a societal crisis." He emphasized, national strength and public grievances are interconnected variables, giving rise to a combined force that acts as a significant driving factor for the potential collapse of the Chinese Communist Party. Who will settle the blood debt accumulated over 24 years of persecution? Jiang Zemin, the former leader of the CCP, initiated the persecution of Falun Gong 24 years ago, on July 20, 1999, with the slogan "Eradicate Falun Gong." Before the 20th National Congress of the CCP, the actions taken by the regime against Falun Gong were referred to as the Zero-Out Action. What do these words mean? They mean attempting to achieve the goal of having no Falun Gong practitioners left in all of China. During these 24 years, a substantial number of Falun Gong practitioners in China have been persecuted to death. This has been a mass extinction targeting these peaceful practitioners spanning across centuries. Today, in 2023, it's time to settle the blood debt accumulated by the CCP during 24 years. So, who should be held accountable for this blood debt, and who will be responsible for repaying it? This is a significant issue that needs to be clarified. On February 21, 2000, Chen Zixiu, a 59-year-old Falun Gong practitioner from Weifang, Shandong, was beaten to death by thugs. This case, reported by the Wall Street Journal, sent shockwaves across the world. This incident marked the first known case of a Falun Gong practitioner being persecuted to death after Jiang Zemin initiated the crackdown on Falun Gong. On July 13, 2023, Ma Yongxia, a 75-year-old Falun Gong practitioner from Daqing, was tortured to death with the complicity of inmates in Harbin Women's Prison in Heilongjiang Province. This case was reported by Minghui.net on August 16, and this is the most recent case of a Falun Gong practitioner being persecuted to death, occurring 24 years after Jiang Zemin initiated the persecution. On April 19, 2003, 25-year-old Falun Gong practitioner Huang Xiong made his last phone call to his brother, Huang Wanqing, who was in the United States. 20 years have passed since then, and Huang Xiong is also missing, with no information about whether he is alive or deceased. In the past 24 years, how many Falun Gong practitioners like Huang Xiong have disappeared? It's difficult to count. On July 17, 2023, the Coalition to Investigate the Persecution of Falun Gong in China, CIPFG, published the testimony of its first organ harvesting victim, who described her experience of being subjected to organ harvesting before her death. This testimony was recorded and reported to the CIPFG by a doctor. The victim's name is Zhang Xiuqin, a 46-year-old woman. The date of her organ harvesting was April 28, 2019, at the People's Liberation Army 211 Hospital Infectious Disease Department, located at 45, Shuifu Road, Nangang District, Harbin. The organ harvested was one kidney, and she passed away on April 29, 2019. We're going to report this case in another newsletter. For the past 24 years, how many Falun Gong practitioners, like Zhang Xiuqin, have been secretly killed by the Chinese Communist Party through organ harvesting? It's difficult to count. On June 22, 2016, Canadian human rights lawyer David Mattis, David Kilger, and American writer Ethan Gutman independently conducted a 10-year investigation and jointly released the investigation report on forced organ harvesting of the Chinese Communist Party in Washington. They concluded, based on data collected from publicly available CCP publications, that the annual number of organ transplant surgeries in China is approximately 60,000 to 100,000. From 2000 to 2016, it could be as high as 1.5 million. The primary source of these organs may be Falun Gong practitioners. Meanwhile, CIPFG has conducted a continuous 17-year independent investigation into the Chinese Communist Party's organ harvesting of Falun Gong practitioners and has obtained a substantial amount of evidence. This evidence is prominently featured in the more than 30-episode series Ironclad and Irrefutable Evidence produced by the organization itself. The conclusion reached by the CIPFG is, since 1999, the CCP's criminal group, led by former CCP leader Jiang Zemin, has controlled the entire state machinery, including the party, government, military, armed police, judicial system, and medical institutions, and has implemented a mass killing of Falun Gong practitioners nationwide through organ harvesting for transplantation. In this continuous 24-year mass extinction of Falun Gong practitioners, the CCP has killed and killed, all the way to today. The blood of Falun Gong practitioners has stained the hats of many who have risen through persecution to gain wealth and power. This is a beyond limits warfare that transcends all moral and legal boundaries. It has led to the inversion of right and wrong on the land of China, moral decay, the transformation of people's hearts for the worse, the manipulation of law enforcement by law enforcers, the mass replication of wrongful cases, and the corruption of officials reaching unprecedented heights in human history. As a result, the CCP has become the most corrupt party in the world today. Every injustice has a perpetrator and a debtor. Who are the perpetrators and the debtors in this case? Firstly, the decision to persecute Falun Gong and the decision to carry out forced organ harvesting of Falun Gong practitioners were all made by CCP dictator Jiang Zemin. Secondly, after Jiang Zemin made the above decisions, a group called the Blood Debt Gang was formed at all levels of the party, from the central to the local, led by Jiang Zemin and Xing Qinghong, to persecute Falun Gong. This group included many high-ranking party, government, and military officials. It is an interest group that thrives on blood, where they prosper or suffer together. So, from 1999 to 2012, the primary debtors for this blood debt were Jiang Zemin and Xing Qinghong. From 2012 to 2017, during Xi Jinping's first 5 years in power, she mainly focused on consolidating the highest authority that was still controlled by Jiang Zemin and Xing Qinghong. Xi Jinping investigated and removed 440 high-ranking officials at or above the deputy ministerial level, as well as other central government officials. The majority of them were actively involved in the persecution of Falun Gong under Jiang and Zheng. The primary debtors for this blood debt during these 5 years were still Jiang Zemin and Xing Qinghong. From 2017 to 2022, during Xi Jinping's second 5 years in power, he continued to work on wresting political and legal power from Jiang and Zheng's trusted officials. He continued to remove officials in the political and legal system who were loyal to Jiang and Zheng and were involved in the persecution of Falun Gong. However, Xi Jinping did not stop the persecution of Falun Gong during this time. Therefore, significant responsibility for the blood debt during these 5 years lies with Jiang Zemin and Xing Qinghong, and Xi Jinping also bears significant responsibility. Human lives are at stake, and blood debts must be repaid. Failure to repay blood debts is against natural justice. Jiang Zemin passed away in the midst of a major epidemic on November 30, 2022. Former member of the Communist Party's Political Bureau and Vice President of China, Xing Qinghong, has now become the de facto leader of the Jiang faction within the Chinese Communist Party, making him the primary person responsible for the 24-year blood debt resulting from the persecution of Falun Gong. Currently, the Chinese Communist Party is facing the most profound comprehensive crisis in its history: extreme political corruption, a spiraling economic decline, complete loss of trust in its culture, diplomatic isolation, sharp divisions between officials and the people, frequent incidents of extremism, and an unending series of natural and man-made disasters. This comprehensive crisis is the cumulative explosion of all the problems accumulated during the eras of Mao Zedong, Deng Xiaoping, and Jiang Zemin. Among these, the evil persecution of Falun Gong led by Jiang and Zheng, which has stirred the heavens and angered both gods and humans, is the most significant factor contributing to this comprehensive crisis. Why? Because Falun Gong is not just ordinary Qigong, it is Buddhism. The practice is based on 3 fundamental principles: truthfulness, compassion, forbearance. Throughout history, persecuting spiritual practices has been considered a grave offense against both the divine and society, causing calamities for the nation and its people. Faced with the current comprehensive crisis of the Chinese Communist Party, Xi Jinping seems to be at a loss. After 11 years of Xi's anti-corruption campaign, it should be abundantly clear that the Communist Party has become so corrupt that it is beyond saving. The collective corruption among the high-ranking officials in the rocket force, whom Xi Jinping personally promoted, is clear evidence of this. At this historic moment when the Chinese Communist Party is facing a great transformation in 100 years, on the brink of collapse, the only way for Xi Jinping to protect himself and his family is To abandon the atheist nonsense of the Chinese Communist Party, embrace the ancient wisdom that 3 feet above your head, there are gods, act in accordance with divine will, cease the persecution of Falun Gong, and bring those responsible for the heinous crimes of persecuting Falun Gong, led by Jiang Zemin and Xing Qinghong, to justice. Only in this way can Xi Jinping receive divine blessings and turn misfortune into fortune. The entire message above is quoted from an article titled "Who Will Settle the Blood Debt Accumulated Over 24 Years of Persecution?" by the editorial board of the Epoch Times in Chinese edition. We, starting as spiritual practitioners and having great faith in the divine, wish to strongly convey this message to even more people. Our aim is to provide a clear and insightful understanding of the ongoing events so that we can make the right decisions for our own future. Recognizing the evil nature of the Chinese Communist Party, especially if you're Chinese, we truthfully urge you to withdraw from this evil organization as soon as possible, speak out against this evil, and have faith in the divine. Sincerely repent before the divine, in the hope of receiving divine protection from impending disasters. Don't forget to comment in the section below to share your opinions on today's topic with us. Make sure to like and subscribe to see more interesting topics from China Truths. Don't forget to leave a comment in the section below to share your opinions on today's topic with us. Make sure to like and subscribe to see more interesting topics from China Truths.